Habibi Fahodie family. Busara here. Just want to make a quick video talking about solutions. So this probably won't be a popular video, or it might be a video that upsets a lot of people because solutions, which require changes from us, will normally cause backlash and rejection and very harsh opinions. So with no further ado, I'm gonna just get right into what I want to talk about. It's real brief things. This should be a real short video compared to the normal videos that I make, because I actually have to meet someone for a job I have here. So let me get going here. And I love my African proverbs. I'm going to start off with a Wolof proverb. All the flowers of a tree do not produce fruit. Wolof. So all the flowers of a tree do not produce fruit. And I used a portion of the tree that's dying, or that may have disease on it, or that may have pest on it that is causing this ill, maladapted growth, the neuro, I think it's called neuroses or something like that, necrosis. I'm not sure. Apologize for butchering the word, but this death on the plant is something that could have been fruit, but something prevented it from happening. So the ancestral wisdom comes with all the flowers of a tree do not produce fruit. And I feel that this particular proverb from the Wolof ancestors will lead me directly into what I need to speak about real briefly, which I feel is a solution for African people. And specifically, I'm speaking to Africans within the borders of America, but this plan or solution can be applied throughout the diaspora, globally, so universally, throughout the cosmos. It doesn't mean that it's perfect. It doesn't mean that this is the answer to all. It's just a solution, something that can be tried, that hasn't been tried, that should be tried before we eliminate it. So we must have some type of rules. Now, in the handbook of revolutionary warfare, who is now an ancestor, the first president of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, gave us rules of discipline for when we're at war. And he was speaking of a hot war, and it could also have been a cold war, but he was speaking of rules of discipline. And before I even go into the rules, I'm just going to speak on how we need rules, and without rules, how things become unruly and get out of control, and they spiral out of control. Even with no standards for manhood, you'll have women thinking that they're men. With no standards for fatherhood, you will have women saying, "Say Happy Father's Day to me." With no standards for womanhood, you will have men walking around in heels proclaiming that they're women. So rules are very important. And not only do you not only do we need to have rules, we need to have disciplines that affirm the rules, because the rules are just on paper, but the actions, the way we conduct ourselves, the way we do not contradict the rules on paper with the actions that we do in the real world, will align the rules, will make everything come into order. So when we have guidelines for manhood, when we have guidelines for womanhood, when we have guidelines for what we purchase, for what we wear, what we don't wear, what we don't buy, what we eat and don't eat, it's a reason behind it. It's not just doing it to dictate your life foolishly. So I'm going to go into the rules of discipline. Obey orders in all of your actions. So, and we're speaking from a righteous point of view. We're not saying obey everything Donald Trump would say, or George Bush, or even Obama or Bill Clinton. We're not saying obey all orders in your actions from unrighteous people, but with righteous rule, with righteous order. Obey orders in all your actions. It says, do not take a single needle or piece of thread from the masses. So do not steal. Do not take what does not belong to you from the masses, because it's so easy to take from the masses, because you only can take a little from the masses and it adds up to so much. That's why people don't understand how the Arabs and the Chinese and all the other foreigners can come into the black neighborhoods and make money, because they're making money on the masses of our people, and a penny here and a penny there consistently adds up. So as they say, don't take a single needle or a piece of thread from the masses. These are just general rules. Speak politely, and just think about it. Who speaks politely these days? If you go on social media, everybody's cursing each other out or demeaning each other. Even the quote unquote hate speech isn't really hate speech. The people who are being persecuted with the speech are even speaking unpolitely. So everybody we have this attitude of unpoliteness in this world that must be reversed. So that doesn't align with his rules of the handbook for revolutionary warfare. I'm just trying to do not damage the crops. So I'm just going through these. These are just certain rules that I'm not telling you do not damage the crops. And I'm speaking as Kwame Nkrumah, because I'm trying to dictate your life. It's a reason behind that. Do not hit or swear at people. Not telling you that because I'm trying to he's not saying this because he's trying to dictate your life. Pay fairly for what you buy. That right there eliminates capitalism. And Kwame Nkrumah was a huge opponent of capitalism. He wasn't a fan of it. So if we want to look at paying fairly for what you buy, and why I say that eliminates, sorry about that, and that eliminates capitalism, because if you pay fairly for what you buy, that eliminates the capitalism markup. Capitalism, you have people who buy herbs for $2 for bundles, and then they'll turn around and sell one bundle for $10. You know, the markup on capitalist ventures and prices are ridiculous, and it's not paying. You won't pay fairly for what you buy. That's seen with the way they, even with the heroin poppy farmers in Afghanistan, they're being exploited by the United States or whoever is really the real tycoon, or the CIA, in the drug market. The farmer isn't making as much as the people who are putting it on the streets. Okay, and it goes like that with the Tyson chicken. The farmer who's farming the chicken isn't making as much as Purdue and Tyson. So we go to one more I wanted to say. Do not, all of these are good rules. Know the enemy within. I mean, that's a rule that we should never forget, because this is how we are easily manipulated. Because if we know the enemy within, then we won't become narcissistic and individualistic and materialistic as we have become, and as we are ushering our children to be, which is sad, because our children should be ushered into warriorhood. And I've been teaching the youth lately, and they want to be warriors, but I'm gonna be honest, the first 10 to 15 years of their life should have been exposed to seeing parents who are warriors. And a lot of them have not seen warrior parents. They have seen weasels, they have seen misguidedness, they have seen ratchetness, they have seen lack of values. A lot of them. I'm not speaking about strictly my students, I'm speaking strictly about the youth. But a lot of my students and the children they've been exposed to, I can tell that there's been a lack of value, a lack of warriorhood, a lack of guidance, a lack of speaking to them in a way to where they know to return everything that you borrow. I mean, why wouldn't we as a people want to have rules? So I don't want to get stuck on this, but I really think all people, I put this book up here for a reason, all African-centered people who are serious about making changes should implement at least 7 of these 15 rules in their daily lives, whether it's turning everything you captured. You know, we don't have to be bad people. We're talking in a righteous society within our group. If we find something in the community center, a $20 bill or so, we don't pocket that. We go to the front desk with that. You know, pay for anything you damage. You know, if you back into someone's car, we don't hit and run. That's our community member. You know, we're not here to cause problems. We're here to solve problems. We're not adding to the fire. We're subtracting it. So do not ill-treat captives. Do not take liberties with women. And these are aimed at men, but they're good things to take. So why do we not have a rule that we go by? And how has not having rules damaged us since we were led into the burning house, as stated by Dr. King? So these lack of rules, this I can do whatever I want to do, I'm going to do me, this my kids, don't tell me how to raise my family, has ushered us into a lot of single parents, has ushered us into a lot of death at early ages, has ushered us into a lot of, nonviolent and violent offenders who could have been avoided, that should have been avoided. They put us into an intellectual stupor to where we, at best, are only black faces on white power, at best, period. And we're not picking up the shield, and we're not picking up the sword that the ancestors dropped when they fought to their death. And we're not picking it up and proceeding and going further. We're actually picking up their shield and turning around and swinging it at our own army, at our own soldiers. I would call it friendly fire, but we hate each other so much. So that's why it's important that we know the enemy within. Always guide and protect the children. And I was just talking about the children. I mean, these rules, because what's funny is, which isn't funny, you're always guiding the children anyway. I mean, well, you're either guiding or misguiding them, but it's a form of guidance anyway. So we might as well guide them in a righteous direction, in a liberating direction, more so than leading them towards blind consumerism, materialism, super egos with nothing tangible to back up that ego with, besides more ego. So let me go to the next thing here. Before we go to that, we're going to talk about we talk about revolution, and I know African Center lesson, I put the Chinese in there, but this is a book we should all read as well, The Irritated Genie, which is about revolution. I had the page in here I wanted to read here, but it's okay. We can do this at another time. We're gonna always talk about revolution until we accomplish that. But this is a must-read, your Handbook for Revolutionary Warfare, The Irritated Genie by the ancestor Jacob Carruthers. And it's a slew of other books to read. I would also say study the Cuban Revolution, which I have a very short video, which we can actually look at that right now real quick, just to give me a little quick. It's very quick, and it's just explaining, you know, what changes people. At some point, something has to change, and you either can be in the way, or you can be a part of the solution. So a lot of the times, the people in the way of the person who become the casualties, and you know, the enemy uses that against the sheep to tell you that someone is a bad person because they kill people. However, Moses killed people, if you believe in the book of the Bible, which I also think the Moses story is a good revolutionary tale to read, because it talks about how Moses wasn't about assimilating, integrating. He was about separation. He didn't even want to go to war with Pharaoh. So it's not even the same thing. He wasn't about segregation. He didn't want to oppress Pharaoh. He wanted to get the hell away from Pharaoh. Now they end up fighting other people, but that's something that needs to be talked about as well, because it's survival of the fittest out here. But however, let me play this video real quick.
Fidel Castro came of age at Las Manacas, a sprawling sugar plantation in Cuba's remote northeast. His father, Angel, a former Spanish soldier, had come to Cuba at the turn of the century to fight in the Spanish-American War, and made his fortune growing sugarcane for the US-owned United Fruit Company, the dominant economic and social force in the region at the time.
Throughout the 1940s and 50s, the Caribbean island of Cuba had been America's playground. Beaches, booze, and casinos. Havana had it all. Cuba's land and industry were owned almost entirely by American corporations.
We consider part of the United States practically, just a wonderful little country over there that was of no danger to anybody. As a matter of fact, was a rather important economic asset to the United States.
All right, so I apologize, but it just was a quick little video I wanted to play just to show you about how the Americans use Cuba for a playground. Okay, and that sparked revolutionary thought amongst the native people who were there. I mean, this is where we live, and the only thing y'all come in here to do is to dump condoms in the ocean. So we want to preserve our stuff. We're not just here working to send it all to America and for you all to come here and party. And this is why I have an issue. This is why I have an issue. Excuse me. This is why I have an issue with our people traveling leisurely for no reason, as if we're white people, as if we're little young Christopher Columbuses. And we just should really look at our impact on, are we damaging the crops? Are we paying fairly for what we buy? Do we return everything that we borrow? Do we keep our eyes and ears clean? Huh? All the pornography and the music and in the actual videos. So are we doing what is necessary to help advance our people? And this is, again, this is a solution based. So it's not going to be popular, and it's going to hurt a lot of people, because a lot of us are living out of bounds. A lot of us are living in violation. And we've been in violation for so long that we think that it's validated. So in a true revolution, in the Cultural Revolution in China, which they said it lasted approximately 10 years, but that was after the bubble down. I even think Mao died in 1976 or 70. So, but it was coming to an end before then. The real heat was in the 60s. And what they did was a destruction of 4 O's. That was the main premise of the Cultural Revolution in China. So what were the 4 O's? Old customs, old habits, old ideas, and old culture. Culture, customs, habits, ideas. And just think about that and apply that to our people. What old customs do we need to get rid of? Is it a bad eating habit? Is it a political ignorance? Is it a spiritual ignorance? Is it allowing our children to be educated by the enemy? Is it not controlling our own food and growing our own food sources and things of that sort? We have some customs that are strictly rooted within American slavery that are not worth holding on to and valuing. We have an old culture of not controlling our neighborhoods, not doing what is necessary, or at least over the past 50 to 75 years we haven't. And at best 50 years, at best. But even in the 60s, Malcolm X was complaining about, and the NOI had plenty of complaints about foreigners in our communities. So That was 50 plus years ago. So it had to have been even before then. So we have old habits. What are some old habits? I mean, the blind consumerism that we engage in, the old ideas, we'll get our heaven when we die. Just that's just the way it is. The white man that's just the way it is. The mindset of so many of our people. I don't even know if it's cowardice or if it's just complacency or comfort, non-confrontational. I don't know what it is, but the old ideas that we share. So I'm just showing what we could attack. These are solutions that we can attack. We have old customs, an old culture, old habits, and old ideas that must be destroyed. No longer protecting our political ignorance, our political allegiances to Republicans or Democrats. No longer blindly passive Christians or dumb Christians. I'm gonna go even further. Dumb Christians. And I know this is a bad way to put it, but look up the definition of dumb. And I'm disappointed in a lot of Christians because a lot of Christians that I come across aren't well read, don't read books. They are very isolated and they don't come off as smart people. And God, which I would believe the creator created all, which would be intelligence, wisdom, the earth. Why wouldn't you want to know about that? Why narrow yourself down? So I've come across very few intellectual Christians. I'm not saying that they aren't here, but go look at social media. The most holier than thou people are not talking about absolutely nothing. They was getting Popeye's chicken sandwiches. They was involved in all of the stupidness. And they are not standing on anything that would make somebody want to come to God's house. So all of those old habits, old ideas, old culture, old customs must be destroyed and new cultures, a new value, a new habit must be instilled. And it's not going to be instilled organically because you weren't made into niggas organically. You weren't made into scared Christians organically. You weren't made into ignorant Christians organically. You weren't made into just ignorant party animals organically. This was forced onto us. It seems like it's what we want to do now. The perm was forced to our ancestors. Wanting to dress and talk and walk and go to their institutions was forced on us because they made it as if it was something to be. They down talked us. They played that. So all of these ideas that we have formulated are rooted in an old must be destroyed idea. We're coming up on 2020 and they're still selling perms and they're not even sold by Black people. So we're coming up on some beyond need to rectify times. Old ideas, old habits, old cultures, old customs must be destroyed. And I want to implement some things that I think should happen because there are just certain things that we shouldn't do. But I don't think this is going to organically happen. I don't think organically people are going to stop getting cable to use their cable money to pay tutors and homeschool their own children. I don't think people are going to sacrifice all of the materialistic things that they have been duped into thinking are worth something to put their monies together to alternate a homeschooling program. I don't think organically we're going to decide to put intellect over ignorance. I see more people in 2019 talking about entertainment than liberation. And we must work on this, or it's going to continue to work against us. This is not going to organically fix itself. It's going to keep organically spiraling, which is not organic, but it's going to keep spiraling out of control. First you get Little Kim, then it leads to Meg Thee Stallions. It's not getting better. You know what I'm saying? You went from Snoop Dogg to, the people who complain about NWA. I mean, you could go for an NWA album right now compared to what's out, compared to NWA. This is not fixing itself. And there's more and more artists lined up ready to take the place of the artists of today when their flame burns out. They got new debauchery. I've even been listening and coming across music from your queer LGBTQ folk music. And I'm not gonna lie, they got nice beats. They're coming with the song topics, but they're finna take it to a whole nother level as well. I didn't know. I start listening, you hear the lyrics, and then you go Google it, and my good receipt checks is to see what they was talking about in June. You see artists talking about some, Pride Month to me means liberation. You already know that they have old customs, old culture, old habits, and old ideas. And their old ideas is whatever white people is doing is right. Their feminism is right because that's what white women is pushing. Homosexuality is right because that is what white people are pushing. It's not an organic black thing. And we must destroy the European in our mind. And the question is, what generation will do it? I'm going to put this information out there. It's going to piss off my generation, but the next generation who's catching hell under the system that we didn't fight is going to respect this move. Hopefully. But there has to be some rules. So if your children are going to free schools, miseducated, Black people should set rules for what we should and shouldn't allow, period. And I'm using, I think this is the the Elizabethan era. All right, so that's what, the 1500, some of that nature. But they had color codes and clothes for peasants and the upper class. And I use the upper class children just because the children dress just like the adults, but they have more of an extensive list of clothing that the adults wore. But peasants, and I know that name may be hard to us because we can buy Jordans and because we can get Dodge Challengers and we can buy expensive marijuana and Gucci bags and get extended cable and all of the other things. But we are peasants. A lot of us don't realize that we are peasants because of the material trinkets that we are allowed to buy, the iPhones that we're allowed to stand in line for and buy. We think that by buying material things that we don't control the market value of, that we are somehow upper class, middle class. I have to tell one of my students there's no such thing as middle class, because middle class is determined by a different class. So there's only rich and poor. There's only rich and poor because the rich determines everything. If they want to create a fake middle class, they will. If they want to create a fake or rich class, they will. But there's only rich and poor in this world. It's either you control or you don't. And we get lost in the gray area. But peasants wore dull colors, such as colors that look faded and inexpensive. Bright colors were saved for royalty, upper class, and nobles. They wore multi-layered clothing due to their nature, working the coldness in England. So they were dressing poor. And I apologize if you hear the blender, but that's my wife up there. We make our babies food, or she makes the babies food, because they put arsenic in everything and metal shavings, but we was making it before that. So sometimes you got to be ahead of the curve, these rules. So if we made rules such as, hey, you must make your own baby food if you're Black, or you can't have children, you wouldn't even have an issue with there being metal in the food. All of the things that the enemy is doing, a lot of those things wouldn't happen to us if we had a structure that we can go through. We were, like I said, we were forced into being this. So we would have to be forcefully removed out of this. So upper class children, they dress just like a smaller version of the upper class adults. And if you look at this, and I cut the picture off of the peasant, but if you could just look at it, peasants, they wore colors like brown, and let's see if I have that. Yeah, they wore brown, what the colors meant. Red associated with power, crimson, the color of the church, indigo symbolizes heavenly grace. And this is in Europe because everybody has their own colors. But this is a European color code for their rich and their poor. And as you see, there was no middle class, there's just upper and poor. So it's either you in this circle or you not. Ain't no faking this funk. Purple associated with royalty, white was purity and virtue, worn by the wealthy, and we already know they probably were far from being pure. Symbolizes death, which is black. Joy and happiness was pink. Blue, a popular color worn by servants. Dang, Crips. Orange, symbol of courage. Brown, humility and poverty. Green was a renewal of life and natural. So I'm just, you can see this if you're able to view the screen, but I'm just trying to run through it real quick because I said it was going to be a quick video, but information isn't quick. I mean, even with my students, the youngest, age 7, we're doing our classes and they sitting down, not going to the bathroom, asking questions. So laws on clothing. Wear the wrong clothing in the Elizabeth era and lose money, property, titles, or life. So just think about this, how this could help us. And this is going to piss a lot of people off because we got a lot of no-gooders walking around looking like something they not. We got a lot of perpetrators perpetrating fraud. And fraud perpetrators don't like when you lift the veil on them, They don't like being Scooby-Doo and lift the veil on them. But you wear the wrong color and you can lose your money. Because 9 times out of 10, a lot of our people are abusing our money. So I've been doing rehabs for low income properties, Section 8. And majority of the houses that I walk in, and they have signs that people were wearing Jordans. You see the Jordan sticker, you see Jordan boxes. The neighbors next door who are low income properties, they have $200 Air Maxes on, grass not cut. The values and priorities are so backwards and they're not going to organically fix themselves. I've been a victim of some of this. Sneakerheading, buying shoes when I should have been stacking money for property. And the rich didn't allow their white poor to do that back then because it could allow some confusion. For one, we don't need you walking around looking like you got money, approaching women when you a deadbeat father. I mean, how wouldn't we do good if we had a color code for men who don't take care of their children, or for women who don't have custody of their children? You have roaches in your home, you should be dressed in a certain way, period. Until that is fixed, so so they know at the store, oh, don't sell them nothing but Raid and sticky traps, because they need to prioritize. But we don't want real solutions. We want to have our ego and die from it with a smile on our face. And that's not the way solutions going to work. That's not going to bring in a BB Fahodier. That's going to continue to bring in death at early ages, over-sexualized children, homosexualized men and women. It's going to bring in more confusion. No laws. You're going to still have men wanting to walk in the women's restroom because we don't have no rules. And I'm not saying that we should have a color code like verbatim of what the European idiots was doing. They were doing it strictly for their own narcissistic, Uruguayan, acyclic values. It had nothing to do with righteousness. But if the poor knew that they couldn't dress a certain way, what would they do when they get money then? And this is why the poor is allowed to dress a certain way right now, because they know if you didn't screw your money off, waste your money, it would be used to maybe fund revolution, to build institutions, to buy farmlands, to innovate weapons. But when you just sneakerhead, you poor, 27 living with your mom or living with somebody else, mom, baby mom, whatever, and your main goal is just getting shoes, kicks, and nonsense, you're doing exactly what the enemy needs. So of course they'll let you do that, especially when they know how to organize their society to where, all right, it's a certain type of person we won't see anyway. So the only people who end up getting screwed are the false middle class and other poor people. So you have people who are sleeping with people based off of material things, and those people have STDs, or they have no money, or they have no values, or they have roaches in their homes, or they have a husband or a wife. It's certain things that we should do, that we should have rules that protect our children, that protect our future, that secure our values, and that get the Yorugu nonsense out of our mind to get us back to an African ancillity, because this European ancillity is killing us. It is not what we need. So that was just a real quick talk I just wanted to have about rules. So if you, I don't think, now this is my again, this is what I think a solution is. And it will have to be done forcefully. If your children are going to free schools, you shouldn't have cable. Now, I could say you should have internet, but even that should be monitored. It's just certain things that we shouldn't do. You shouldn't be allowed to spend more on material things than education when we are in the position that we in right now. You're a part of the problem. And when history rolls out, there will be a generation that looks at the blind consumers, at the ratchets, at the hot girl summer people, at the blicky boys. They're gonna look at all of these people and they're gonna say, you're trying to tell me there was people who were telling you not to listen to this? They were trying to tell you to reject this and people didn't listen to them? Those will be the new idiots. Those will be the new crania Americana idiots, the people who rejected the righteousness, the people who rejected the right path, the people who rejected the rules will be the idiots. The people who wanted to just consume until the next generation had absolutely nothing to conserve. Those will be the new idiots. And it will only take some type of hostile rule to get us from being niggas to being gods again. Because we didn't willfully, happily, joyfully become niggas again. And I don't even like saying the word, but I'm saying it in this because it has a meaning. Because we were forced into being those. And we're going to have to be forced into being gods, or at least forced out of being niggas. And then once that, we'll see who deserves to be gods. And everybody won't make it. As we seen with the 4 O's, we go back and look at the 4 O's before it go, they killed some people, they beat up people, they tortured people. Same thing with the Cuban Revolution. They killed some people, they tortured some people. Same thing goes with the story of Moses. They killed some people, they tortured some people. And there's no revolution in history to where you didn't have sacrifice and bloodshed. The S and an S, the sacrificing and the shedding of blood. So what will we sacrifice? What will we follow? And when will we realize that all flowers of a tree do not produce fruit? And when will we cut those off so that the fruit producing flowers can grow big, beautiful blooms? A BB Fahodie family.